Will you get that right by your mouth, please?
Actually, my boyfriend,
now I can hear you.
I forget I have to deal with my boyfriend.
Welcome to Your Mom Podcast. Your mom's podcast.
This isn't any podcast. This is your mother's podcast.
My mom's podcast.
Nah, dude, she's your mom.
With Ashley Addison and Lisa McCaffrey.
Your mom is a podcast.
Shut up, dude.
Hello again, everybody. I'm Ashley Adamson here with my favorite Lisa McCaffrey. Welcome to Your Mom.
Your mom.
Your Mom. This
that was harmonized.
That was
Your
good.
mom.
We've been practicing. This is a podcast celebrating the messy randomness of parenting and motherhood. In case you're just joining us, if you're new here for the first time, welcome. We're happy to have you. And the premise of the show is that we interview moms of highly successful people to hear their stories, get advice on what they did well and what they totally screwed up. And in the end, I think, Lisa, what I have found is that basically this is like a reminder to all of us that even the best moms out there that feel like they know what they're doing.
Right. Or on paper look like they knew what they were doing because their kids are so successful.
Like you. They
have no idea.
No clue.
Had no idea, have no idea. They're just kind of winging it and going along. So that's okay if that's what you're doing.
Exactly right. It's parenting is throwing a bunch of mud at the wall and seeing what sticks. And
hopefully it comes out as a beautiful piece of art at the end that sells for millions of dollars. Because some art actually does look like
it's true. It's true. But yeah, so hey, if you're a parent and you're listening to this, all I got to say is we are all doing the best we can, and that is more than good enough. So that I'm going to start the episode with that caveat. And I'll also say by way of introduction, Lisa has 4 amazing boys. Most notably this week, I'm going with Dylan McCaffrey because as the third child, I don't think he gets celebrated nearly enough. That's just my guess. So I'm giving Dylan the shout out as your most notable son today. And I stay in his room when I come to visit you, and it's glorious. So he's my favorite.
Actually, that's so funny you're saying because he's the only kid that's in this house right now.
See, I knew it.
You knew it. It's like we have such instinct. We have such a connection. It's so weird. He's literally here right now. That's so weird. And
good. I could feel his presence. I'm glad. I'm glad. I tell him I'm giving him a shout out. He's your most notable son to me today.
He's the tallest. He's the tallest of the group.
Yep. Okay. Great. Love Dylan. Okay. So no guest today. It's just Lisa and me. So hopefully you're still listening. We have gotten so much good feedback on our mailbag episodes that we've been doing every month. So we decided to do a little bit of a twist on this one. Instead of sourcing questions, which have been amazing from our awesome listeners, we sourced questions from our children and a few from family members. So some are good. Some are really, really, really good. And so this is a mailbag episode, the kids version. And just a reminder to everybody.
Can I interject? I'd like to call this episode Mom Madness in honor of March Madness because it is in March. And we have like a conglomeration of questions, a cornucopia, if you will.
Ooh,
plethora, a bizarre feedback of questions. So it's Mom Madness. Let's go.
Mom Madness. And you know what? It's good because just back to the original point off the top is that I have a friend who says that every morning getting out of the house with kids, it's like the NCAA tournament. It is just about surviving and advancing. That is all it is. So I'm Mom Madness. I'm
last minute 3 to win the game.
Yes. Okay. And I should remind everyone that I have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. So obviously when I was sitting at dinner with them last night, they gave me some really thought out, beautifully worded, eloquent questions that I'm excited for you to answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Start. Did you want to start with, I think we should start with one of your boys' questions.
One of mine or one of yours?
Yeah. We'll go back and forth and you start and we'll both answer and then we'll see how this all comes together. But I'm excited for this. So welcome to the Mom Madness mailbag episode.
Wow. That's a mouthful, but I love it. As parenting is basically a mouthful. Okay. This was actually a question by one of Christian's friends who he grew up playing football with, who's an awesome kid. And this was I presented like this, ask us a question about what you ever wanted to ask your mom
So you're all sitting around last night with your boys and some of their friends. And that's where these sources. Okay, exactly. Great.
And all these are accomplished kids. The one kid is an amazing UFC fighter. And the other one was,
Wow.
played D1 lacrosse and now coaches lacrosse and has a high powered job, really competitive job. So
Love that.
these are not like lazy kids. These are pretty motivated, awesome kids. And this
My
was
kids are lazy, by the way. Just I want to throw that. So we have some questions from lazy kids and some from
while
non-lazy
I was
kids.
talking to these kids, my kids were asleep on the sofa, just so you know. So
Perfect. Okay,
no,
go ahead.
I'm kidding. No, but this was a really thoughtful question and pretty quick after I asked. So I was pretty impressed. So he just said, if you see your child about to fail, do you jump in and correct them, or do you let them fail to teach them a lesson? Bam.
Okay, I think that is at the heart of parenting, to
Mhm.
be honest. Do you wanna go first?
Well, I'll say this, we all agreed at the table, everybody was at the table, including Ed and everybody. We just said, obviously, if it's about safety, you absolutely intervene. And then Christian chimes in with a story of when we were in Idaho Springs, on our way to the mountains, we pulled over and ate. And after dinner, it was cold and everyone was all bundled up and we're walking down the street and our car was parked across a street that had cars that were moving, not a highway, but pretty active road. And Christian saw our car and was little, mind you, and jumped into the street, ran across the street in a car. You're afraid because it's cold that they're ice, had to screech on the brakes to stop from hitting him.
It's just even though
So
I know Christian made it, I still like that
yeah.
just
Oh,
gives
no,
me
it haunts it as a parent. It just haunts you. But the best is Ed, I don't know if it's the best or the worst. You guys be the judge, but Ed ran out without missing a beat, picks him up, runs him. And there happened to be a police station across the street. I kid you not, runs in the police station, opens the door, sits him up on the table and said, I have to turn him in. He just ran across the street without looking both ways. God bless the police officer, came to the front, played along with him, and was like threatening to like, oh, we might have to put you in jail. Now tell me what happened, and made him reveal. Christian's eyes were as big as saucers, shaking, freaking out. So Ed, obviously it's still traumatizing to Christian this day, not the running in the street, but the thought of him actually getting arrested. Bad parenting or good parenting? You guys judge.
I'm gonna say ultimate amazing parenting moment because it clearly had an impact. You always wonder as a parent, like, is what I'm saying and
This
doing having an
sparring.
impact?
Yeah. Is this
And clearly, how old was he?
That's what I was trying to figure out. I'm not sure that he was very little, but old enough to remember the incident, remember like all the details, remembers the badge at the police officer and looking at his gun, and behind them was the jail in this small town in Idaho Springs, just scared to
I know
death.
right where
But
that is.
guess
Were you
what?
at Bojo's Pizza, by the way?
Yep, absolutely.
I
You
know
know
right
it.
where you were. I know
With
right where you were.
the honey on the
Oh, the best.
on the ends was so good. But he never ran in the street again.
Okay.
So I don't know.
So, and as far as we know, hasn't been in trouble with the law, really,
As far as we
as
know,
far as
yeah.
we know. So, I'm gonna say great parenting and a great example of when you see your child about to fail, as long as, yes, within the realm of they're not gonna do something that is gonna be irreparable damage to their body, you let them I think you try your best to let them do it. This is something that I struggle with a lot,
Mhm.
and I think
I can't wait to ask you when your kids are teenagers what you do.
well, and
'Cause
that's I
that's
think the thing, because it's the stakes are so much
yeah,
different. Like right
right,
now, and it's why I think it's important that the way I would answer this question is I think it's important to practice when your kids are little, because they do all these things that you're like, oh my God, I can do that for you in 1 second. Like, and then we
right.
don't have to sit here for 20 minutes while you try to do whatever that
Put the
is that
shoe
you're
on the
trying to
right
do.
foot.
Yeah, exactly. Put your shoes on, get dressed, like pour a bowl of cereal, all of those little things that you're trying to make them self-sufficient. It is easier just to do it
To do it,
rather
right, it
than to
makes your
watch
life
them
easier.
fail. Yeah, it's
Right,
hard, right? Like it's hard to watch
right,
your kid
right,
fail.
right. You
But
don't
I
wanna
think if
be
you
yeah.
practice it when they're little,
Mhm,
that it becomes more innate. And I think ultimately, and I've probably talked about this at some point on one of our shows. I'm sure that I have, but my mom was a single mom and had my older brother and I, and she worked full time. She went to school full time, and there was very little. I don't want to say coddling because that has a negative connotation, but she never checked really to see if our homework was done. She never it was just we just did it. Like we packed our lunches, we started doing laundry when we were little because we
wow,
just had to do it. Now, I think it's changed, like every generation has started to change, and I think we do
mhm,
more for our kids than ever before. And so to me, I'm like I do want them to be self-sufficient, but I struggle with this more than anything. And the real hard line is the physical part of it, because when I see them, taking off on their scooter down the street and I'm like, they are going to eat
Mhm.
shit. And I
Yep.
can see it coming. But there's also like me screaming and yelling, stop, wait, that's not safe for your body. Like once they fall once, they're going to remember that,
Yeah.
like that they've got a helmet on and as long as they're not cars coming, but it is hard. That is at the heart of, I think the hardest thing for me as a parent is to let your kid fail, let them struggle, let them try. And because there is such a feeling of satisfaction with them when they do it themselves. So that's what I would say. How did you feel like you did it when they were young?
Gosh, I don't know. I pull back more like because obviously physically you don't want them to get injured, so you want to protect
Right.
them. And Ed was extreme on that. He was so paranoid that they were going to get hurt, so he was extreme. So I kind of backed off in that area. I'll be
Yeah.
honest. But I was more like worried as they got older, and are they hanging out with the right kids? Because that's
Mhm. I
but
think
at the
that's yeah.
same time, you don't want a helicopter parent, like, and walk
Totally.
in and be like, "You
You
can't be
can't be
friends with
friends with
him,
them.
you can't be friends with that person." Like,
Right.
that's you almost want them to learn from each other,
Yes.
and there's something about having, like, a group and having them I actually don't mind they have their little secrets and they
Yep.
they have that. I think that's good for them. I think that's part of
Totally.
growth, and they have stuff they keep from their parents. In a weird way, that's kind of a good thing, but
Yeah.
hopefully I just hope mine are a little bit older, but like that there are always consequences for actions.
Yeah.
Don't try to like if your kid, like let's say Colin goes and cheats or gets in trouble, that there are going to be consequences for that so
Yes.
that they don't do it future later on. Like it may hurt and be really hard at the time,
They need to
but
understand.
right, that there are consequences like, yeah, this has, whatever you do, it's going to have repercussions. So I
I
don't know. I think
totally agree. I
those
think
are the
that's
best
right.
lessons.
And it's
So
easy, especially when you're in a situation, and I think I see a lot of it happen with parents, is that they swoop in so that their kid doesn't get in trouble, so that they don't get that
and
bad mark, or
fix
that
it.
their transcript looks good, or that they, know they
Exactly.
have to get this grade because they gotta get into this school. I mean, we saw all the stuff happen
Oh
with
my gosh.
Varsity Blues, like, we could do a whole episode on how
Oh gosh.
the
Yeah.
parents get involved with their kids, and it's just they gotta figure it out on their own. And I was talking to a Stanford professor a few years ago, and she just said, I've never seen it's like a crisis of, and this was probably about 5 years ago. She said we are in, it's not that kids are, you know, over the top, like think that they know what they're doing. It's the opposite. They come to college and they are so ill prepared. They don't
Wow.
even know, like if their roommate says something mean to them, they completely melt down. If they get a B minus on a test, it's like
Right.
their world is over because
What's a
they've
B
never
minus?
dealt
I
with
don't
failure.
even know.
Yeah,
What's a B
exactly.
minus?
As someone
I'm
who went to
kidding.
Stanford who never
Obviously.
got a B minus.
Joking, completely joking, yes. No.
But I do, I think
But
it's a
yes,
really
no,
fine
that's
line. Did you ever make any of your kids break up with any of their friends? Was there anyone that you said they can't hang out with?
there was a few along the way that I was nervous about, and there was at a young age, just mind you, I love all of their girlfriends right now, so let's not get to go to
Mhm.
TMZ. But no, way back in the day when they were younger, just starting to get into girls, there were some girls that I felt were trouble, and that's so horrible. And I
Yeah.
don't want to say you can't date them, they can't date them, but there were some girls that I remember giving a lecture to one of them and just saying, "Hey, look, these are some red flags. Just I'm telling you this." But the worst thing to do is say you can't date that person because then they'll
Exactly.
they'll gravitate to him too. It's almost like they do need to learn for themselves, but you just have to be careful with consequences because you
Yes.
just
You
yeah,
gotta
it's
live with
scary.
them.
It's
You gotta
hard,
live with
right? It's a fine line. It's such a hard, and you'll see as they get older, it's harder.
Yeah.
My friend's daughter's a fifth grade teacher, her first year teaching fifth grade.
Mhm.
And so I was asking her, she has about 20 kids in her class. And she says, I was just asking her general percentage number. She said there's about 8 that are really easy to teach. They'll make a mistake, they can work through it. And she said those are the parents they go to the parent teacher conferences. They're not calling if they get a bad grade every 5 seconds, but they show up, they're present. And then she said you have the one extreme that have the helicopter parents. And
Mhm.
those kids, they talk back. They don't have a boundary for adults. They don't realize that, this is a teacher. If they don't like something, they'll talk back and they'll get their way no matter what. And their parents will back them up, even if they're in the wrong. Then she said, then you have the other extreme where both parents are working. They're basically non-existent. They don't show up for parent teacher conferences. And she said, those are really hard to teach as well. And she just said, cause I was like asking, analyzing it, and after everything, what do you think of your mom? Her mom's my best friend. So I'm like, hey, where'd your mom screw up? Cause I know where she screwed up and she knows where I screwed up. So we laugh about it to this day with our kids. But anyway, she was funny, but she just said, no, it's just, you have those two extremes, but the ones in the middle. And she did say this too. Sorry, Ashley, but she did say that usually the youngest kids are the best kids, the youngest kids in the family that have older siblings, because they'll also teach them along the way too. And they'll, through watching how they live their life, or the older kids will kind of not bully, but, say, oh, you're doing that wrong. You're doing that wrong. And it's easier for a sibling to say it than a parent sometimes. So
totally.
she said.
I think it's you get more adjusted, like the younger kids have dealt with. And also they don't have the total focus of both parents. I mean, that's the perfect example, right? Like
Right.
we always joke about, I have a friend who said that with the four, if you have 4 kids, you got to have 4 kids, because the first is basically like a throwaway. No,
Right.
I don't mean that,
100%.
Max. I don't mean that. Max, you're not a throwaway. We love you.
No.
No, but it is because you put so much energy. You're so afraid of screwing them up.
Absolutely.
That like
I was the worst
screwing
parent.
them up. Yeah.
Looking back on with Max, we overparented. I was so nervous. I was so afraid to mess it up that I overdid it. I always said the best thing that ever happened to Max was having Christian, Dylan, and Luke. It just took the pressure off a lot. Still a lot of pressure, but we took a lot off. So
and Luke is super well adjusted. Luke is sweet baby angel Luke.
Luke, perfect. Who's so independent and so easy to talk to. You know what he said? Well, I don't know.
Okay. What?
He was analyzing some of his friends. He has a cute girlfriend who's awesome, and he was saying he's noticed that girls in general, not necessarily his girlfriend, but just in general, because he has a bunch of friends that are girls too. They play sports and whatnot. Because girls in general, I think, have a very hypersensitive or a neurotic relationship with their moms. They said girls and moms have a relationship especially as they get older. And that's a very touchy thing. And
yes,
he just said it's hot. He goes, I'm starting to learn that, because they never had sisters, so they don't know. But he just said, what I love about this generation of kids is they completely open up, and they talk about their feelings, and they talk about the way they were raised, and they talk about ailments or things that are bothering them. And I think that's so healthy to do. And he comes back home from college, and it's a little different than like what Max and Christian used to do. And it's so great because he'll talk about it. And it's, you realize that people that look like they're so perfect and everything's, so great, they're vulnerable and they have issues. Everybody has issues. And, my goodness, let's talk about it. It's normal.
I totally agree.
And
I think Luke is spot on. There is a lot of, I don't know a single, even my girlfriends who have like wonderful relationships with their moms and are super tight. There's always a dynamic, right? There just is. And I can say the same thing for my mom, and I am at a stage of appreciation in life for my mom that's higher than I've ever had. So shout out to you, Mom. And we're going to, by the way, next month for Mother's Day, I'll give a little tease. We're going to hear from both Lisa's mom, Big Mama, who's amazing. And we're also going to have an episode with my mom. So stay tuned for that. You'll see why we're so weird. And, I think everything will make a lot more sense.
Like you said, you understand a child after you meet their mom in particular, but their parents.
You understand why they're nuts.
Why they're crazy, why they're,
okay, we're not going to get through any more.
Yeah. Sorry. That was
it was a great question.
Wasn't that a great question? I know.
It was a great question. And it is. It's the one thing that I think about and try the hardest to,
it's difficult. And each age and stage, you have a different answer for that too.
There was a book I read. The last thing I'll say is that there was a book I read one time that I try and harken back to, and it's Coddling of the American Mind. It speaks to exactly a lot of what we're talking about. But one of the things that it recommends is every month, like we think that kids are stuck in the ages that they are. So we do all these things for them because we still see them as these little 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-olds. But that every month or 2 months, you should be having your kid do something that they haven't done before. And it can be something small, like take a walk around the block or go take out the garbage or just these little things. Yeah. Just tiny things that,
that's awesome.
Because and then they feel good about being able to do it. And all they want is independence and to feel like they can do it on their own. So there's a speech on Modern Family. Did you ever see the TV show Modern Family? I did, but I don't know the speech.
Did you ever see the speech? Oh my gosh, we have to put it on some. It's so good. It's the dad, it's right after they adopt Lily. And the dad comes in and gives this speech. Oh my gosh, it's the most beautiful speech, talking about how you have this baby, you fall in love with the folds and the baby, and you just get used to the baby stage. And then all of a sudden they become like a toddler and they're giggling and you fall in love with their giggle and their personality. And then you're like, oh, that's so neat. And then the next stage, they're a kid, they're running around. You're like so impressed. They're making friends and becoming social. And, in each stage you're losing what you thought was what they were going to be forever. But
Yes.
you're also gaining a new
Gaining.
stage. You're gaining something else. And then
I love
eventually
that.
they get older and then you have to like let go a little bit too. Each stage you're
Mhm.
letting go a little bit too. So anyway, yeah. So
I
I'm
love that. No, and I think
it's a beautiful
I
speech.
think
Go
that
look
is
at it on
real.
YouTube or
Yeah.
online. It's so neat. I've watched it twice now. It made me
We'll
cry.
link to it. We'll link to it in the
Yep.
show notes. I'll make a note right here to link to it. Okay. Okay, now on to should we do a Collins question?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Let's do I'll start with Cora. So I
Okay.
asked both of
Go.
them at dinner last night for and I guess these are combined. So
Yeah.
Collins, his first question is, how do you drive a train? That was number 1 on his list. Cora's first question was, how do you ride a train with a snowblower on top of the roof? So, I'm gonna let you take
I'll do
the
Collins because I
you
did
drive a train.
YouTube that. And after YouTubing it, Collins, I realized I think I could be a conductor. I don't want to toot my own horn or
Oh,
brag or anything,
you'd
but
be such a hot A
I look good in the
conductor.
hat.
Oh,
I
yeah.
like the outfit. They're comfortable, they're like kind of
Overalls?
loose
Do you get to
fitting
wear, like,
overalls.
is it
Yeah.
kinda like
I look
coveralls?
pretty
Yeah.
good, which I wore every pregnancy
Mhm.
nonstop because it
Mhm.
was in back then. Yeah, thought I looked so
Did you
cute.
have one did you do, like, the one, like, the one shoulder off
Sometimes just to, mix it up a
when you're
little.
spicing it up? Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, yeah, it was a cat's meow back then. Anyway, yeah, so I honestly, after looking it up, it really, really wasn't that hard. Like, I was thinking, "Oh, is there a key?" You wonder, like, people joke, "Is there a key to the airplane?" Starting according to the YouTube video I watched, there was not a key. You literally turned the, like, almost like the propellers on, and then you, like, took it out of neutral, and it would just go. And you could, like, by turning one thing, it just went faster, faster. But think about it, there's no steering wheel. You
Right.
don't steer it. So you could do that and like I could sit back and read a book or file my nails. And I know and you also have to don't you have to like every now and then stop? I mean, obviously at a station you have to stop, but aren't there like
I think
railroads?
on your train, I think you just slow down and let them run it, like, jump off. "Hey, I'm slowing down, everybody
Yeah.
off," and
And
just
just
do the
roll
slow
out,
roll.
just do a nice roll so you don't
It's like when I drop Collins off at, in the
at
carpool lane. I'm
school.
like, "I'm gonna
Perfect, yeah.
slow down, you just open the door and go, go, go."
You make
Yeah,
sure there's no buses coming by and you just
right.
push him out.
Exactly.
Perfect. He's got to learn. He's got to learn how to jump out and roll. My goodness. So,
Yeah, it's life skills, and that's
it's
go back to
life,
the very
right?
first one. It's just trying to
Stop
prepare.
coddling your
Yeah,
kids. Let them
it's
go.
don't prepare the path, prepare the kid for the path. Yeah, that's exactly.
Anyway, after looking it up, I
So
felt
you're
confident.
gonna be a conductor.
Yeah, I could. I know.
Okay. I'm
Wasn't as hard. I know. No,
I
no
just
offense.
really love that you were watching a YouTube video on how to drive a train. That nothing has made me happier than that.
It
Collins will be
was
so excited.
very enlightening.
Okay,
Anyway,
I
so
guess the
you
answer
did the
that's a great
follow-up.
answer. The one for Cora, how do you ride a train with a snowblower on top of the roof? I think you just do it. I think you just get on the
I'd
train
be
and
worried though if you went into a tunnel, would the snowblower
oh,
get
yep, yep,
like you'd have to make sure you
right.
were in an area where you didn't go through tunnels that would knock it off. So
Yeah,
anyway, that would be
yeah,
my worries. That's what I'd stay up late worrying about.
yeah. All right. Well,
If anyone has any answer, it's way better.
if you guys have better answers than we have to those, we'd love to hear them. So please leave us, a
I have a
review.
really good chicken pot pie recipe I can give you, but I don't know about the snowblower on top of the train.
Can I do another Cora one real quick? This was a good one.
Yes. Yeah, please.
And it
They're
started
both.
off, I thought, like, great, and then she kept going. So this is Cora,
Oh,
my 3-year-old. What is it like to be a mama?
oh,
Which I
oh,
thought that was what
gold.
she was gonna say, and I'm like, "Oh, so good." But it was, "What is it like to be a mama in the daytime when you're not awake and
Oh,
you bonked your head?"
whoa. You're not so
So
wait, so you're a mom I assume it's like a mom, but you pass out.
well,
Like
that's so I
yeah.
that's the thing. I think I was
Oh,
trying to do
wow.
some psychoanalysis on this one, and it's possible that
Mommy
she's
was drunk
asking what it's
again.
like
She
to be
watched
a
you pass
mom
out.
when
Yeah.
you're hungover. In the daytime, you're not awake, and it's like you bonked your head. And so, Cora, the answer is it is really hard because all you want is a dark room with silence, and that's the one thing that you really can't get when you're a mom. So, it is
Mommy.
hard to be a mama with a hangover, I think that's the answer she's looking for. One day when she listens to this when she's older and she's playing it for her
She's trying to
therapist,
figure out why
she'll
mommy's
be able
asleep on
to
the sofa
know.
every day. My mommy
What
needs
is
that
it
extra
like to
couple
be a
hours.
mom? At first, I was like, "What is it like to be a mama?" That's such a nice question. In the daytime when you're not awake and you bonked your head. So,
Cora, 555-7676, social services.
oh, okay, now that we've got those 2 out of the way, on to one of another question from your
Oh,
family.
okay. This was one from Christian, which actually made me sad that he had to ask this. He along the lines of being a terrible mom. Oh, so he said it. What are the best qualities in a son from a mom's perspective, or how can a son make his mom happy? And I'm like, "Phew." So
Oh my
right
gosh.
away, want to know what I thought of? I thought of the Prince lyrics. You're like my mother. She's never satisfied. That's what I thought right when he said that. I'm like, fuck,
Oh,
I'm the worst mom ever.
wow.
Cause I'm like, in my head, I didn't ask this. I didn't go there with this. I'm like, shoot, does he feel like I'm not proud of him? That was my
Yeah.
reaction. I'm like, and then I
Well,
thought of freaking Prince singing
yeah.
like my mom, she's never satisfied. Like, shoot, like I
I
damn.
Okay, well, let's start there. Are you
Am
are
I
proud of him?
obviously I go from like I'm so proud of him. I'm proud of all of them, but like I
Yeah,
also don't want them to get a big head because I feel like he
yeah,
does get a lot of accolades. So, I want to like well, and then I started looking back. I'm like, I think I was the most happy when I'd see them doing something kind and nice. Like he did the video for the little boy who's sick. That
yes.
I was like welled up with pride, but that was like amazing, like things like that when I see him doing things and giving back. And so I'm very proud of that when I see that. And the fact that he can make someone's day by signing a piece of paper, like what the heck?
He realizes he's one of those superstars who made it, who really realizes what the kindness that you can give a stranger, what it can do for somebody, and especially a kid. So
Yeah.
that I think I don't know if that answered his question. So what the
Right.
best
But and
qualities in a
even
son from a mom's
yeah,
perspective?
and but aside from that, like I'm proud of him. He's like first of all, I have to say when I watch him play, I'm so proud of
Yeah.
him. Just I mean, I have to say his effort and what he's able to do is amazing. He amazes me. But I don't want, constantly tell him that. He gets that from but aside from that, just even our day to day, like I talk to him almost every day on the phone. I share things with him that I like don't even share with Ed. I'm so thankful that I've raised a kid that I like to be with. How about that? That I
Oh,
want to call, that I want to share things with, and I want to hear about him and his life and what he's doing. Like, I don't know. I guess I'm proud of that. And all of them though, I am proud because I think those are my happiest times. It's not like some exotic vacation. It's literally just hanging out in my kitchen with my kids, even if it's two of them or one of them, whatever. But Christian in particular, I because he's not here that much. He's here now, but I just love when he's home. It makes my week, my life. I love it.
oh,
I
Lisa, you're getting me over here.
sorry, I know I'm
No,
emotional.
I think that that's a beautiful way to say it, is that you wanna raise a kid that you wanna be with and that hopefully wants to be with you, and the only thing I would add, I think that in terms of the best qualities in a son from a mom's perspective is that they're engaged, like to feel it's reciprocated, that they understand and acknowledge what you have hopefully poured into them and that some of that mattered and that they care and are engaged and want to know about you and your life. So you talk about the conversations you have with Christian and how special those are. It's easy to think of your parents, and this is true for daughters, sons, whatever, as kind of like, oh, they're checking in on me and I got to call them. I got to do this. But when you actually flip it and realize as you get older, like, oh man, I am so lucky to have this relationship with this person who is more invested in me than anyone else on the planet will ever be. Like my parents are going to love me more than anyone else on the planet, like,
That's
period.
true. That is so
And
true.
once you realize that, when you have your own kids and you realize
Yeah,
like, oh my
right.
gosh, it's really special. And I think great question by Christian, no surprise, and great answer by
Great.
you. All right. Okay, because I don't we could make this like a 3-hour podcast, but I won't. We've got a couple more that we'll get to and then we'll wrap it up. Back to Collins, I said, do you have any questions specifically for Lisa? Because they really started to kind of get off on the train thing. And I said, do you have any questions specifically for Lisa?
Sure.
And his two questions for you is how
Oh,
fun is it making the podcast?
love
And
it.
how fun is it being together with Ashley? And whenever he says my name, like my real first name, he just dissolves into laughter. He thinks it's the funniest thing that his
Awesome.
mom has a name,
That she has
and
that you're actually a
that
human
I have
being.
another identity.
You're not just the incubator. You're actually a human.
He
He's
does
trying to
every
come
time
to
he
terms
says it,
with
he
that, it
just
seems.
starts
He's trying to
crying
realize.
laughing. I
I
know.
love
Ashley, so how fun is it being together with Ashley?
What
Ashley.
do what does your what do I don't know. What do your kids think when they see you on TV? Like, do you ever show them, like,
They love
replays
it.
of they
Yeah, I think Chris will put
yeah.
he'll put stuff on sometime and they love it. I think I've maybe told this story, but for a while, the only time that like sports was ever on at our house when I wasn't home was when they were watching, my show on the road or whatever it was. And so when Collins was really little, this is like one of my favorite stories. Chris said that he put on, we must have put on TNT or something, some NBA coverage, and Shaq was talking, and he just looks at the screen. He goes, "Mama!" Like, there she is. Because he just equated somebody
Just sitting at a dinner talking about
as,
sports.
"Oh, that's gotta be my mom. That's the only person
I
that
mean,
does
you guys
that."
are like twins. It's
I mean,
seriously like
Shaq
you
and
guys,
I are very, I think, just, like, we're basically the
yeah,
same person
the
in a
same.
lot of ways. So I could see how his young mind would make that confusion, but I was dying laughing. So yeah, I think they are just starting to realize what I do for work, and I think they think that it's
You
cool.
know what? I think Collins was trying to tell us he wants Shaq's mom on the podcast.
Which is a great idea. We should
That
get
would be
Shaq's
amazing.
mom.
Thank you,
Okay, yeah,
Collins.
thanks,
Collins
Collins. Love you,
basically
buddy.
is running the
He
podcast.
really is. Yeah,
He
he's
does it subtly, but he is sending us messages. Let's manifest Shaq's mom now. Let's go.
done. All right, I'm writing it down. Add that to the list.
Love it.
Yeah, so Collins, the answer is making the podcast is the most fun thing that I have done in a very long time. It's like one of those things that requires a lot of work, and then when you're doing it, it is I like right now, I am having a freaking blast. I can't think of a better way to spend a random rainy Tuesday than chatting through all the stuff with you. And I think it leads you to think about some stuff, right? Like the conversations you were having last night with your boys and
Yeah.
their friends. It's when you have a specific platform and you are intentional about asking these questions, it leads to those conversations. So it's obviously been a huge gift for me.
Yeah, I ditto exactly what you said. It is a blast, and it makes you a little introspective,
Yep.
and it makes me think and try to improve even my parenting now on how to
Yeah.
do it. Makes me really think about it and think, okay, what can I do better? Like this, like, oh, I feel bad. Maybe I don't tell him that I'm proud of him enough,
Yeah.
or them. Like maybe I need to be, like, okay, I've humbled him enough.
I think you've humbled enough.
Yeah, I think maybe I should be kinder. Yeah,
I
maybe
think you
that's
got that. I think
so. No, but it is. It's the most fun thing that I do all week. I
Yeah.
look forward to everybody, like all the kids' friends are like, "Hey, you do a podcast?" I'm
Yeah.
like, "It's so fun." For
Okay,
sure.
we've got time for one more question. So
Okay.
what do you got do you have any
Yeah.
more that from your boys that you want to get to? There were a lot of good ones. Because if
Let's
not,
see.
I've got one more.
Oh, well, I mean, I have this one was from my friend. Um, first off, this is my friend whose mom passed away, and so
Mm.
I asked her, I'm like, she just said, hey, appreciate your moms that are alive. She goes, one thing I said, oh, what do you wish you could have asked your mom when she was alive? She goes, I wish I would have asked her more questions about her life when she was growing up, when she started dating. Did
Yes.
you go to a prom? What was, did you go to what was college like? Just things. And it's so fascinating to hear because it's so different. Every generation, it's a little different than the next. So
Mhm.
anyway, she just said to do that. So reminder to do that.
Yes, good.
Yeah. And she just said, she was funny. She's like, why are certain kids driven and why are some aren't?
Mm.
And
I think that's just the hardwiring, Lisa. I
yeah.
think that you can want your kid to be driven, and I do think that sometimes there are certain circumstances that happen in somebody's life that they have more of an edge to them, and there is like a drive to prove people right or wrong. I think it is all about nature and nurture. I
And
believe
some
in
of
that.
it's unhealthy and some of
And
it's
some of it
healthy.
is totally.
Yeah,
I think that's
sure.
true. I think there's
That's
some
it.
people who are really driven who, I think it's like, wow, just can you pull back and enjoy your
Yeah,
life
calm
a
down a
bit,
little
calm
bit, but then
down.
you hear their story and you're like, "Oh, that's why they're
That's
like
why.
that." Oh,
Exactly.
I have to say Christian's, since he's been home, he's been talking about some stories of some teammates from, other teams in his current team that
Mhm.
I wanna get these kids on.
Yes.
Their stories, you guys, like, are like, literally going from foster care to foster home, and end up making it in the NFL,
Unbelievable.
playing for millions of dollars. And it literally, he was telling me some of the stories, and I was in tears. I just, you hear it, but just to hear that which guys are like that, and it's heart wrenching, but also enlightening because
Yeah,
they've made it, and it's amazing. And they've had no guidance from their parents,
right.
and
They
I would
figured
love
it
to
out.
get them on and find out, yeah, how did you figure out, who helped you along the way? 'Cause you have to have help. You have to. You're a kid.
Yep.
So, I mean, I was tearing up on some of the stories. So anyway,
No, I think
that's another podcast. So,
yeah, no,
yeah,
I
but
I
they're
think
driven, but then some of their brothers and sisters weren't.
right.
And that's another interesting thing. Same parents, but kind
Same
of like, yeah,
circumstances,
same circumstances,
about
and one does one make it and
same
one doesn't.
resources, and that goes back to something I know that I've said on here that I will repeat because I think it's important for everybody to hear and for me to remind myself, is that my dad always says, "You can't take too much credit or too much blame for how your kids turn out because they are it is each their own person. You can help them along the way, but ultimately, like, everyone is responsible for their own happiness and what their path is, and you got to be there to support them. And ultimately, they have to choose, and that is a really hard thing to come to terms with. But it's the only, I mean, it's why you can have a kid who goes on to be, in some ways, the most successful, soccer player in the world, and
Right.
also have a son who has struggled with major drug addiction and been in and out of jail, and whose life took a very different path. So I
Right.
do think it is like a way to remind yourselves of grace. And it also allows, when I think really hone down and think about that, it kind of allows me to just like step back, because I'm like, I'm not, no matter what I do, like, I just have to love them, and I'm going to do things that are not great, and I'm going to do some things that are hopefully good. And it is Collins and Cora, it is up to them as to how their lives are going to go. And I'm going to give them
True.
everything that I can to sort of launch them. But like, ultimately, they got to choose what they want. And that's, I think, the scariest part about being a parent, because all
Yeah.
you want is your kid to be happy and succeed and do well, and find fulfillment in whatever form that looks like. So that's
Amen.
what I would say to that. Can I just, the
Absolutely.
very last thing, because I think your friend brings up an amazing point about asking your parents questions. And Chris, my husband, he had one for us, as I asked him last
Yeah.
night before we went to bed. I said, "What's one question that you have?" And he said, "If you could interview one mom, dead or alive, who would it be and why?" And to me, I had like immediately two different answers to this. One was, I don't know why this popped in my head immediately, but Betty White's mom. Like, the late great Betty White,
Yes.
I'm obsessed with her. I think she is amazing on so many levels. And I was reading about her mom, and I would be fascinated to sit down with both Betty White and Betty White's mom. That would
Okay.
probably be
I
my,
love Betty White. I didn't even think of that, but that would be
I don't know
amazing.
why. Wouldn't that be just
Yeah.
so great? And
Yes.
then, to Stacy's point, your friend's point, I think I would wanna interview some of the moms in my family who I never got to meet. My mom was just telling me the other day, and I've heard some stories, but I don't really know much about, like, my great-grandmothers. So, Clara Hogan, Celia Earhart. I think about these women who I've heard their names and I've seen pictures
Celia
of, but
Earhart, is
I
she
don't
related
know.
to Amelia?
No, I no, different spelling, but
Oh,
maybe.
okay.
Yeah, she probably flew a plane,
They
and I
could
just
have
don't know
changed
about it.
it the spelling when she
But
came
you
through
know what
Ellis
you realize,
Island.
though? Because when you have, and I think this is the hard, sad thing, and this is why we need to ask our parents and grandparents questions and write them down so that their stories do
Right.
live on, because it's like 2 generations go by, and all of a sudden, my kids aren't really gonna know my grandmother, who was so formative in my life. And so how do you keep those memories alive and those stories so that you understood where you come from? So that's
You
who
know what
I
we
would
need to
I would
do?
go
We
back
need
and
to put
interview.
on our website a list of good questions to ask.
Yes,
And just write a
great
couple down, and
idea.
they're just yeah, let's do that. Let's have, like, some target questions, and if any of you our listeners out there have any questions they wanna
Yes,
add to this list, please, because I'm always looking for questions, so I've started to try to do this with my mom, and every now and then I'll ask, like, a little question
good.
here and
And
there,
isn't
what
it
was the
amazing,
question?
just you think that you've known her your whole life and
Yeah,
that you've talked
great.
about everything, and then all of a sudden you ask a question and it's like, "Oh, I had no idea. I had
Yeah,
no idea." That is
completely. It
so interesting.
humanized my mom. It made
Yeah,
me think of her as a little girl, as her as a
yeah.
teen, her as a college student, and then as a mom, as a new mom, I'm like, "Wow, she went through a lot of the same things I did." So,
Exactly,
she was
and you
a
don't see it, it's hard to see them that way until you actually ask the questions. I'm gonna give a plug for a company called Storyworth that basically they organize this for you. So you sign up, and I did this for my
neat.
dad and my stepmom. You basically send them, you sign them up for a membership, and every week they get a question, and it's generated either through the company or you can pick your own, and they answer every
Oh,
week
neat.
one question, and they're really cool. Some of them are really big picture and some of them are smaller, but every single week there's something, and in the end, after a year, they put together a book so that all of those memories
Cool.
and observations live somewhere, and you can buy as many copies as you want. But it's
I'm doing that. I
it
gotta
is,
write
it's
that
a really cool story worth. Go look it online.
down. Yeah,
They're not a sponsor of ours yet, but I'm gonna, let's
they're
man
going to be after
man
this. Have you
because
ever
I
done
love
an
what they do.
have you ever done ancestry DNA or any of that stuff?
I did 23andMe, yes.
You did?
Fascinating. Yeah.
Did you get details? I would be more preoccupied, not really where people are from, but, like, what their life was like
Yes.
who
Yes.
they were
Well,
and that
and you
stuff.
know who else I would add to the list of moms I would wanna interview? My dad was, adopted, and the grandmother who I've talked about, Mary Adamson, who passed away 2 years ago, was, like, one of the most formative women in my life. But his mother, his biological mother, I should say,
Wow.
we've found out a lot more about her, and again, maybe we'll have another podcast about that another day. But that her story is incredible, and finding out some of the connections. And when I looked at the ancestry in 23andMe, I'm like, wow, I've got all of these second cousins that live in Pennsylvania.
Wow.
Or that, Lancaster, PA. We've got
Maybe
any
you're
listeners
related
in
to Ed.
PA. I might be related to Ed. It's true. We might be like third cousins or something. So I'm so fascinated by all of that. And I think I'd add that to the list too. But yeah, it's making sure that people know that their stories matter, and making sure that we are able to encapsulate them and share them, I think is something that we don't do well enough in our culture, and that other cultures do really well, that we should do.
And
I love that
everybody has
idea.
a
I'm going to
story.
write some questions down on our website.
Right. I know, but everybody has a story. Everybody has
do.
something fascinating. Yeah, they
They
really do. They really do. So I don't
Um,
want to.
okay, Lisa, I'm already like late for a
Okay,
meeting.
go.
So our hour together is
Look
over,
at
but
you, Miss Important. All
no,
right.
it's not.
Again, do you want me to
Okay.
like entertain Cora and Collins on this?
Yeah,
while
would you
go
do
and-
that? Because they're just in the
we have
other room on a
bar
screen. So
down
let
the
me,
street.
Collins, Cora. They're actually running the internet in the basement. They're like,
They're running on a treadmill that's generating the power for this podcast.
and they're not going quite fast enough because I've lost connection a couple times. So
Okay, go
I'm
do
gonna go out
do
and talk
your
to them.
important stuff. Okay,
I love you.
I'm
This
gonna go
was
disappoint
an
Christian.
amazing. Yeah, go humble Christian. Make sure that he knows that there's still some things he could do better. That is an incredible question. Shout out to you. Shout out to all you boys.
Shout out to you. Now I know how to drive a freaking train. I'm good.
Hell yeah.
Thank you, Collins.
You're gonna be I'm gonna ride that
Your
train.
mom drives a train.
Come on, ride that train.
Yep.
Woo, woo, woo.
We need a your mom conductor hat. Then Collins would think we were like the cat's meow.
That's what we've been doing.
Let's do it.
See you next week, everybody.